everybody, welcome to the podcast. Ozonics Killerwinds podcast back again. I'm Phil Tanner, Nick Simon. Oh yeah. That was a good intro. We're going with it. Boom, boom, boom. Huh, huh, huh. Dropping the funk. Dropping the funk. Ozonics Killerwinds podcast, baby. Whoa.
That was good. I like the intro.
All right. So.
Oh. I'm trying to find the cricket.
It's a really long cricket.
I think we just go with the intro there.
Yeah, that's fine. We'll run it.
Listen, I don't want to talk in that high voice the whole time because that would get really distracting.
Get really annoying too, probably.
But I thought it was good.
Yeah, it was super, super good.
Maybe you couldn't understand what I was saying, but
That's fine.
we're going to go with it. Okay, back again. I already did the intro. I'm not doing it again. Today we are talking about... I keep looking out of this piece of paper.
That's fine.
It's like a nervous tick, I think.
That's okay.
Today we're talking about late season recap.
Late season recap. Bunch of things thrown in there, really. I mean,
Yeah, listen, lately the podcast, we've been doing a lot of just spitballing,
yeah.
a lot of banter.
Yeah.
We called it something else.
Riffing.
What?
Riffing.
Riffing?
We've just been riffing.
I don't think that's what it was. It was something else. It was called like,
Oh.
no, it was, we were calling it something else.
I can't remember. I'm pretty sure
it
it's
wasn't,
riffing.
It
Though.
wasn't banter and it wasn't riffing. We were just doing a lot of, I don't know, some word that's escaping me. But we're talking about late season recap.
Yep.
So here, I'm going to sum it up in 10 seconds. So if you have to go and not listen to the rest, you're getting the whole thing right here. It was warm. It was slow. Then it got cold. Then the season was over. And then we got a blizzard.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
Yeah, that was it.
That's pretty much what happened.
We missed the cold by a day.
Yeah. And for whatever reason, North Iowa stayed warm. Southern Iowa got cold and got snow.
Some snow, yeah.
And I just felt like I had a little bit of luck with Jet during second shotgun. The last weekend, we had some rain and, kind of gloomy weather, and I got him out. We kind of snuck in, and he shot a button buck, which was awesome. Which is second deer of the year, so that was cool. But then late muzz came in, and it stayed warm.
Yeah.
We didn't have any snow for Christmas.
Rained.
Yeah, we had all this rain, and we just were on the cusp of it, and it just felt like deer were not on their feet.
No.
And it just made it really tough.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it the entire late season. It's just like, normally there's snow on the ground. It's tough for them to get food, so they have to go to those, food sources and whatnot. Whereas now the, forest floor was wide open, so they could still, find anything that they really wanted to eat, and they can just stay close to their beds. And, it makes sense for them to just stay hunkered down because they were just running like crazy for the last, however long, couple months, whether it be rut or getting pushed around by gun hunters. I don't blame them, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like what I've noticed in Iowa especially, obviously they rut hard in October, November, and then it gets to be the gun seasons, and they start to get really ran around.
Yep.
And then that running around and the pressure that turns into ends up really kind of throwing them out of, and obviously then the rut's behind them, and they're tired. And so when all that adds up to pressure, all that adds up to not acting the way they were acting before.
Yeah.
And they get more of in this winter, swing of things. But the funny thing, and what I have noticed, and I kind of had this in my notes, and I'm going to bring it up now, what I've noticed, and I don't know if anybody else feels this way, but in the places that I hunt that are in north central Iowa, are a lot of fragmented pieces of timber with agricultural fields kind of skewed into them in a lot of different ways. What I noticed during late season, because I usually just try to keep shooting my bow all the way straight through.
Yeah.
And during the archery season where my shots are, 20 to 40 yards, it seems like during late season, it's like everything is like 40 to 60 yards.
Yeah.
It's just hard to get close to them.
Yeah.
And I think what I've realized for me is, and I think part of it from my perspective is when the shotgun seasons come through and they're getting done with that and they kind of feel that pressure, what I notice is a lot of deer will just walk out right in the middle of a field.
Yeah.
And when they come off a piece of timber or the woods and they come out in the field, they are not sticking along the edges.
No.
They're walking out in the middle.
They're getting out there.
They want to have a large field of view.
Yeah.
Because if they have a good field of view, then they can be safe.
Yeah, exactly.
And so for me on my spots, that gets very hard to get close to deer.
Yeah. And
I mean, not that you can't, because last year I had an opportunity and didn't get a shot off, but I had a big mature doe on January 10th walk down this trail through the timber and was at full draw, and she just didn't take that next step and then kind of turned, and I didn't get a shot. But it's just usually really tough to get close to them.
Yeah, and we saw that this year too. I mean, our cameras kind of shut off. I mean, they got really, really slow there. But it seemed like every time we got a picture of one standing in front of the camera, you could always see 5 or 6 out in the middle of the field.
Yes.
And we saw that at both spots that we were hunting.
Yep.
It was just kind of a weird deal because like we weren't getting pictures, but we just had a hunch like, okay, we know that there's deer there.
Yep.
We know that they're probably just out in the field, just mingling around, getting some food if they do come out.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a challenge for us. I mean, we did have the muzzleloader, but it only reached us out to 200 yards, which still even kind of, was made it pretty tough still.
Yeah. No, I mean, like I said, this one spot, it's the field in this bottom is 400 yards one way, 300 yards all the way across, or 600 yards if you stretch the diagonal.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's tough. And it's like I said, I've just really felt like I've noticed deer just really will walk out on high spots. They walk out on where they have a great field of view, and they don't dilly-dally.
Yeah, exactly.
This is where I'm going.
Yep.
I want to get out in the middle, and if I see something, then I can run in whatever direction I feel like I need to go.
Yeah, get out of Dodge quick.
So, like you said, it just made it tough because the cameras were pretty slow, and it was kind of tough to try to put cameras where we think deer were walking out, and it just wasn't really working that well.
Yeah.
And again, like I said, we'd have spots where we had cameras and you could see a doe walk by, and then you'd see 4 or 5 deer behind.
Yeah.
But it just made it really, really tough. Like I said, we didn't have the cold weather, which didn't really force them on their feet. The pressure of the gun seasons and the fact that they're tired after the rut, buck activity on the cameras was pretty near non-existent.
Yeah, there was nothing. Yeah. I mean,
the only really thing to mention, which was which was kind of really bizarre, was we kind of had almost like an anomaly to that.
Yeah.
Which we had a buck that we had encounters with during the rut, during October, during November. He was not a giant deer, not a dink.
Yeah.
He, kind of felt like he probably needed another year.
Yeah.
But
beautiful deer regardless.
Had some encounters with him where he was coming down and, was exciting enough that picked up the bow. We're looking at each other like, okay, what do we do?
Yeah.
But the crazy thing is all of a sudden we started to get him on his feet and on his feet right at dark, or like half hour before sunset.
Yep.
All of a sudden there he would be in front of a camera. But the craziest thing about that, and we'll show a shot of this, we've got 2 permission pieces that are a good 1.5 miles apart.
Yep, 1.5 miles, like exactly.
Yep. And fragmented timber with ag fields in the middle of it with a river that runs along it, okay?
Yeah.
The crazy thing is we had him on camera in one spot in an evening, in an afternoon, and the next evening, was it the next morning?
It was so we had him on the one spot early in the morning.
Yes.
Like really early in the morning. Nope, you're good. And then the next time, we had him on the other permission piece that night. It was like 23 hours apart.
Yeah. So it's
wasn't even 24 hours.
Yeah. So it's like we had him in the morning over here.
Yeah.
And then we had him, roughly 22, 23 hours later that same day, really, really late, almost midnight.
Yeah.
The spot 1.5 miles away.
Yeah.
100% same deer. You can see he's got a tuft of hair kind of messed up on his neck.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if he maybe got gored
Yeah, I don't know what it is. It's
what
kinda
happened?
weird.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's weird. It's just like this tuft of hair, and you can see it in the see it in the video that we got of him, and then you can see it on the trail cameras.
Yeah.
And your trail camera had video, so you can see it clear as day.
Yeah.
You could see it on the trail cam photo.
Yep.
On this spot over here, and it was just bizarre to see him 1.5 miles in like less than 24 hours.
Yeah, especially this time of year. I mean, I feel like it's nothing for them to do that during the rut to be traveling, but it was just odd to see that this time of year, especially when it felt like the deer movement was down as a whole.
Big time.
You know?
For some reason, man, he was cruising.
Yeah. And, you know, it can, I feel like a lot of times that's just the personality of the buck, too. I mean, at home, I've had pictures of deer that, I mean, I think we mapped it out and it was like a 6-mile route that he took. And all of my neighbors and people that I know, there's like 6 different people that had pictures of the same buck.
Yeah.
You know, but granted, it was right in the middle of the rut. You know, he was doing his thing. And so it was just really interesting to see that late in the year.
Yeah, I mean, this was right before Christmas, wasn't it? Or was it after Christmas?
I think it was after.
Yeah, I mean, it was late. I mean, it wasn't November.
I should look. I'm actually interested now.
Yeah.
I think it was right after Christmas.
Yeah. But yeah, it was just kind of bizarre because like I said, you know what
Jeepers.
What?
It was January 7th.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay,
January
there you go.
7th. So it was after New Year's.
Yeah, so it was late. Yeah, it was late. And yeah, so like I said, just kind of interesting to see a buck like that. You know, it makes me think back to that conversation with that Dwayne Diefenbach.
Yeah.
And you know, where they're doing this huge deer study in Pennsylvania and they're GPSing all these deer and seeing where they're going literally all the time. They're pinging them every so many minutes or hours, how many times a day. And you know, he talked about that a lot of times there's these natural barriers. They'll use a road or a you know, a certain like
a river.
Yeah, or a power line cutout or whatever, you know what I mean? Like they just use something that's a natural barrier. And when you look at these kind of spots, you think, oh, okay, well the deer over here, obviously maybe they're using these kind of roads as a barrier, maybe they use a river as a barrier, even though you see the deer move across that river a lot.
Yeah.
But
yeah, true.
But you know what I mean? Like, oh, okay. But you know, and again, 1.5 miles isn't 10 miles, but it's far enough.
Yeah.
And for him to do that in less than 24 hours, I mean,
Exactly.
we could walk from one to the other.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But like, it just seems like a lot of things in between here and there that would distract him or like he was definitely just, okay, I want to go that way.
Yeah.
You know? So,
yeah. And I'm curious. I wonder where he's at now. I mean, how far could he have gone? Because I mean,
well, the interesting thing too is you think back to that bobcat.
Yeah.
That was very much a similar thing.
Yeah.
We had that bobcat in even a shorter amount of time on both cameras.
Yeah.
That was on the camera that was to the east. That was in roughly the same spot. The camera to the west was on the river.
Yep.
And we had him the same evening.
Yeah, I think it was the same evening.
Yeah, because you had him first, and then I had him second.
In the morning.
Yeah, in the morning. You had him like in the night, and then I had him like right away in the like 3 or 4 in the morning.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was interesting about that bobcat, you know, that he was doing kind of the same thing. But yeah, like, go ahead.
Actually, I just said, I wonder how far west he went or how far east he went. And actually, we had another picture of him on January 11th. Morning of January 11th, we had him walk by the camera again.
Oh, really?
So he must not have went too far.
Stayed near there.
Staying near in that area. So,
but yeah, so like I said, it made the, you know, most of late muzz season in Iowa pretty tough.
Yeah.
I mean, I know there were some people that killed some deer.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you saw some of it, but it makes it tough when there's no snow, and it makes it tough when those bucks are kind of run down. We didn't have a lot of bucks on camera. You know, we really started looking ahead at the weather, and it looked conducive for January 5th through the 10th. It felt like it was going to start to cool down.
Yep.
And it did. And then, but we still didn't have any snow.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we ended up, and it was kind of funny that buck on camera kind of pushed us in that direction as well.
Yeah.
Just because you still had and I still had my late muzz buck tag.
Yep.
And then, you know, we were kind of trying to figure out, it's like, well, let's try to get something on camera. But if a buck walks out and if that guy walks out, you're like, I'll shoot that guy in a heartbeat. It's like, okay. So we decided to go to this west spot. And, you know, it's kind of interesting because we had been hunting it, you know, I don't want to say conservatively, but in a way that the way we were walking in such a way that we were kind of walking in from the north. There's a thicket that's where the deer are.
Yeah.
They're bedding down in there. That's where they come out of. and they kind of move from west to east.
Yep.
And so we've been kind of walking in from the northeast, walking in from the east, trying to kind of really avoid that thicket and just stay away from it the best we could. And even that day when we were driving out there, that was kind of the idea. It's like, okay, well, we'll come in from the north and kind of get behind that hill and kind of squeak in where they can't see us. And it'll probably be close to 200 yards, but let's try that. And for whatever reason, it's like, you know what? Maybe we should just go for broke. It's like, this is pretty much going to be probably about the last day. This was the Sunday, it would have been Sunday 10th, 9th, 8th. It was the 7th.
7th,
yeah. I mean, we just had that buck on camera that late that night before, and it's like, or that morning of like 1 a.m. or whatever it was. I was like, well, he's in here somewhere. There's got to be deer in here. We know deer coming across here.
Yeah.
Let's try it. So what we ended up doing is we got a ton more aggressive. We actually came in right along that thicket.
Yeah.
And just snuck real quiet down the edge of that thicket.
Yep.
The tricky thing about that is those deer can really see through there.
Oh, yeah.
And you could even see where if a deer was bedded down and they're looking, they can see out into that.
Yeah.
And so, but again, it's kind of interesting because I kind of feel like when you look back at now, a lot of things kind of came together. We talked about earlier in this about how I feel like deer really use their field of view when it gets to be late season to really try to see what's in front of them. You know, you'll watch them come out to an edge of a field and they just sit there and they just look.
Yeah.
And they look and they look. And then they'll walk a little farther and they'll just sit there and look again. And what those deer were doing on that thicket, we had seen them do it during the archery season, is they would come out to the edge of that thicket facing east and just sit there and just stare across. So the idea was like, well, if they're staring this way and we come in from this way, they're not even going to see us.
Yeah.
You know, like as long as we can sneak down the edge and we don't blow everything out of here, don't try to push it too hard, just hard enough. When they come out, by the time they get out in the field and they're looking to the east, we're sitting to the south. We're kind of sitting perpendicular to them. They don't even know we're there.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I think we were both a little worried about was if they were bedding more south where we're going to be walking in, because if they would have been bedded up in there, they would have been able to see as clear as day. So that was the gamble that we were taking. You know, let's gamble this and let's just sneak down. I mean, not too far.
Yeah.
And let's just hope that they're bedded more north. So then when they come out, I mean, they won't see us. And it was interesting too, because pretty much all year we hunted that piece, but on the east side.
Yeah.
But every time they came out, like Cole was just saying, they would come out and they would stand there and stare east where we were sitting and just kind of like survey everything. It's almost like, I feel like if we would have set up on the east side, I feel like it would have been really hard, because I think that
you mean on the west side, you mean?
On the east side.
We were sitting up on the, that night you're saying?
Yeah.
Oh, got it.
Yeah. Because if we set up on the east side, one.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Bless you. One, they're going to probably see us setting up the blind, you know?
Yeah.
Or if we sit in that tree stand, they'll probably see us getting up there and getting ready there, you know? So it's like, it was just cool because we did something that we hadn't done all year long.
Yeah.
And it was just like, we got to risk this because we only got a couple days left. So,
well, and it's like you said, sometimes you have to color with the crayons that you have.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Right. And earlier in the season, you have a lot more foliage on the trees. You get a lot more coverage.
More cover,
where the deer just can't see you as easily.
Yeah.
Man, especially around here, and like a lot of places. I mean, we were driving around yesterday and we drove by a piece of public and we're like, man, you look at that piece of public now and you think about it in July.
Oh my gosh.
You look in there in July, it's a jungle.
Yeah.
It's a jungle.
It's a different place.
It's 8 to 10 foot high, weeds and grass.
Just gnarly.
You can't even hardly get through it. I mean, you wouldn't want to try.
Yeah.
And now it's just barren.
It's wide open.
Yeah, you can see as far as you can see back in there till literally the trees just create a wall.
Yeah, exactly.
And again, the other kind of the crayon that we're coloring with right now is the fact that in October, November, we got to try to get them close, right? And when they come out to the west and they walk to the east, this is where we could see where, okay, this is where they're kind of working across, or hopefully we can kind of intersect them. Whereas if we sat on the thicket during the archery season, they would have just walked out of range, been out of range the entire time.
Yeah, exactly.
The muzzleloader was kind of giving us that little bit of
an edge
that we needed.
Yeah.
You know, because we could reach out and touch them.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and like I said, luckily we got down that edge without them really seeing us or hearing us.
Yep.
And it just worked out perfect.
Perfect.
Yeah, that doe walked out and literally she walked out and stood there. And then the funny thing was it was kind of funny. I did not think that you were going to say this after we shot, but we have a couple cameras, cell cams right there. And we have a cell cam just down the way from that. And we have a cell cam across the road from that as well. And we're both very much similar in the fact that when we're hunting, I a lot of times will turn, you keep your notifications on all the time.
Constantly.
I don't. Jeez. I just check it every couple, at night, in the morning. You're like, want to be notified if a squirrel runs by. I mean, you're like, hey, squirrel ran by. Hey, squirrel. Hey, pheasant. Pheasant. So you're getting notifications all the time. Well, I usually turn my notifications on when I'm hunting. Well, sure enough, we're sitting there, and probably about 10 minutes before that deer walked out, you get a ding on your phone. Across the way, a couple deer walked out.
Yeah.
And it's like, you were calling that what, Cedar Johnson?
Cedar Johnson, yeah.
And then you were calling this Highway Deer 69?
Yeah.
So at Cedar Johnson, these deer walk out. And you're like, hey, let's just got a couple of those on camera. And right away we're like, great, perfect. Well, picked wrong spot again. Like, oh, I can't do anything right,
Yeah.
But it's like, well, it's like, and I guess for me, I was kind of like, well, they're on their feet.
Yeah.
And it's well before dark. Like,
Yeah.
it wasn't well before dark. It was like getting towards dark.
Yeah.
But we still had good light. And it's like, well, that's good. They're on their feet earlier than we hoped. Like, that's great. And not even 10 minutes after that, all of a sudden your phone beeps. You look down at your phone, and sure enough, it's Highway Deer 69. And right away, you were just like, there's a deer. And instantly, I'm like, gun. I am putting my headphones on. You can see on the video, you're grabbing your stuff. I mean, and the deer just completely walked right by the camera. Ding notified you before we could even see it.
Yeah.
That it was there. I was like, oh, here we go.
Yep.
And so we're all set up. I mean, it didn't stand a chance.
No.
So then it walks out, did exactly what we were hoping. Just, it's really focusing to the east.
Yeah.
But just like a deer does instinctively, it's looking around. So sure enough, she's looking, and she looks, and she turns, and whoop, and went like that. And she
was on to us.
Yeah. She knew someone, right?
She was.
I mean, we
sure
tucked the blind in the best we could, but man, deer just don't stand for it. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like they say deer can't see depth very well. Now, again, that blind, it's got a big black opening. So was she keying in on that black opening?
Yeah.
Was she just keying in on the fact that they live there all year round and they go, that's not right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Weren't moving.
Yeah.
Couldn't see us in the blind, but man, she was on it. I don't think she could see us in the blind. So she turns and looks, get on the gun really good. Okay, here we go. Talk about where I'm gonna shoot it at. Whammo. Make a great shot. I mean, just pinned her.
Yeah.
Turns, tries to run off. You can just see the blood coming out.
Dies in the field.
Yeah, crappie flops in the field. Here we go. but the funny thing is the first thing you said after we kind of high-fived and we're getting excited, you were just like, you were kind of like, man, I don't know how I feel about these cameras now. And I'm like, what do you mean? You're
it was
like,
kind of weird.
Yeah, you're like, this is a weird feeling. I'm like, what do you mean? You're like, dude, we totally saw that deer before.
It was weird.
And you know what's funny is I've talked about this before. I set up trail cameras, especially during the fall.
Yeah.
This year's been different because we've been hunting together so much. And a lot of times and we talked about this at the beginning of the year, like, I'm like, hey man, when we're up there, if I'm looking this way, you look that way. If I see you looking that way, I'm going to look this way.
Yeah.
Like we've got 4 eyes, so let's watch different directions. So I feel like, and there still have been times where deer just sneak up. It's crazy. Yeah. But a lot of times we see them.
Yeah.
Because you just can cover a lot more ground with 2 people.
Yeah.
But even this year and in years past, I set up cameras so that I can see what I can't see from the stand.
Yeah.
And I've had that before where I've had the trail cam go off and go blink.
Yeah. And
then, here we go. And I grab my bow and I'm like standing there waiting for the deer to just come around the corner.
Yeah.
You know, is that?
I mean, there's nothing illegal about it. Like,
is it ethical? Is it unethical? I don't know.
It was just, it just felt weird.
I know it's legal in the state of Iowa.
Yeah. I mean, I've just never had an experience like that. I mean, I've had experience where I will
say,
seen deer on camera and I'm like, oh, they're moving over there. Yeah. And then they show up by me. But like, I've never had it to where like, I mean, we were on the gun just waiting for her to step out.
Waiting. Like literally.
Yeah.
We 100% knew she was there.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. I wish I would have taken a copy of it, but I got a thing in the mail. And I don't know if I asked my brother-in-law, and I don't think he got this. And I don't know why I was.
I know what you're talking about, and I didn't get it either. But it was I think you got it before I was an Iowa resident.
It was a questionnaire from the state of Iowa, and it had all these questions about where I sit on certain things. But the big thing that kept getting asked over and over within the questionnaire was, how I felt about cellular trail cameras and how I felt about crossbows.
Yeah.
That was the two questions. So mark my words. Be interesting to see if this year,
See what happens.
when the legislature is in and when the new regs come out,
Yeah.
if there's something changed.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I would be super bummed if
I would too, because listen,
I love them. I love cell cams with a passion.
And again, I'm I'll play devil's advocate. Do I think that cell cams give you an advantage in certain situations where you're up in a stand and you can go, oh, there, the deer's there, and you know he's there before? Absolutely. But I also will say, and we've talked about this, and we talked about that with Zach Rinn that day, I think trail cameras save more deer lives than kill them.
No, 100%, dude.
I mean, holy cow. And
it's not even close.
Yep. And look at my brother-in-law. He doesn't even have a trail camera, let alone cell cameras.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like you can do it without them too.
Yeah.
And they're just so fun,
I know.
and not only that, but now there's all these people that got them. I mean, how are you going to regulate that?
That'd be so
If
hard.
you try to take them away?
Yeah.
How are you going to do that?
Yeah.
And like a lot of states that have taken them away, how are they doing that?
No idea.
I think in Colorado you can use them, but you can't use them during hunting season.
Yeah, it's something. I think that's how it was in Montana too.
Yeah. So it's like, well, how does that work? So I can have it. I have my cell plan on, and then how the DNR going to like find it and then go, well, do you have a cell plan? Nope.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just being honest. Like, how do you regulate that?
No, this year, I think it's a testament to that, because how many times were we like, oh, there was a deer in there last night. Let's go there. Go there. Deer everywhere else.
I mean,
you know what I mean?
And again,
It's
I'm just spitballing here. But maybe the answer is a delay on notifications.
yeah, exactly.
I mean, for example, in Alaska, you can't hunt the same day you fly.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Because if you could do that, you could take a helicopter or a cub and find a sheep or find a moose or whatever you're looking for.
Yeah.
Go land on the mountain, go land on the river, go land on the lake,
Yeah.
and hike up, and there you go.
Yeah, or something where, I know you can set them up this way already, is have it where it just sends you all the pictures from one day at one time of night.
Yeah.
Or of any time you
Yeah,
want.
there's like-
so you could say you have to have your notifications sent on non-shooting hours or
Yeah,
something.
notification delay.
Yeah.
Or just a certain that all pictures come in at this time the day after.
Exactly.
Or midnight, 12:01 from the following day.
Yep, exactly.
But yeah, like I said, I mean, it's funny because I don't know how I feel about that. Okay, here's where I'm at on this whole thing. This is my stance on it, okay? I think that in hunting, the sport of bow hunting, the sport of gun hunting, the sport of hunting in general has been evolving for 200 years,
Yeah.
okay? Since Native Americans made a bow out of a stick and made string out of whatever they made it from.
Yeah.
And, made arrows out of cedar, you know what I mean? Like, and napped broadheads.
Yeah.
The sport has been evolving. And there have been some huge things, when you talk about, I don't know about like the Mount Rushmore, but the things that have really changed in my lifetime in hunting, geez. Camouflage. Wow. Big change, right? Did that really make a difference for the animal? That could be talked about for a long time. But that was a big shift. Compound bows, huge shift.
Huge, major shift.
Tree stands, huge shift.
Rifles.
Rifles been around for a long time.
Yeah, but think of the advancements that they've been making.
Yes, you could talk about, yes, exactly. Then ground blinds. I mean, I remember when double bull blinds were making DVDs and they were shooting turkeys out of ground blinds. Nobody even heard of a ground blind. Didn't even know what they were.
Yeah.
There was no companies except for Double Bull that made a ground blind.
Yeah.
Right? Ground blinds. Geez, Ozonics.
Yeah.
Think about how much that's changed the game.
Oh, yeah.
Think about it. Holy cow. I mean, it gives me goosebumps when I think about it. It's crazy.
Yeah.
You think of, geez, look what Hex suits have done,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now, dude, look what cellular trail cameras have done. Think about how much that has changed the game.
Yeah.
It's changed the game. And through all of these things, it keeps evolving and it keeps evolving and it keeps evolving. And the sport will continue to evolve.
Yeah.
And so, I just think that cellular trail cameras are the next iteration of that.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like everything. Look at cars, look at phones. Like,
Yes.
Everything is constantly evolving, especially in the world that we live in. You
Now,
know?
does that evolution make hunting easier? Yeah, probably. Like if you think about bow hunting in 1950 and bow hunting in 2024,
Yeah. No.
I'm just saying.
No,
I'm just saying.
100%,
I'm
yeah.
just saying.
100%.
They didn't have a a really awesome tree stand or a climber
Yeah, no,
or
100%.
and I guess again that's the other thing that you could say that could be in the mix right there that I just didn't even think of until just when I said that. Made a huge comeback. Saddle hunting.
Yeah.
Right? Right? That's been a huge shift that's kind of evolved even further from tree stands.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's crazy, I mean, so, and then then we're not even talking about optics. Geez, think about optics. Think about how far optics have come in the last 50, 60 years.
Yep.
But anyway, my point is the sport is constantly evolving.
Yeah.
And I think that cell cams are just the next evolution of that.
Yeah.
Does it need to be managed, and did that give us a heck of an advantage right there? Yeah, but we still had to shoot the deer.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't know.
And that's where I stand too. That, like I said, like that was like the first time where I've had it where it works out to where like you're 110 percentile. like I've had it where I've been hunting and I had trail cam pictures on the same property, but to have it like that and have it like that clear cut of a situation where it's like, okay, yeah, that deer is 100% going to walk by and we're 100% going to get a shot at her.
Yeah.
Like it was just my first experience with it. And I was like, wait a second, like this, it just felt.
You were in the moment. You were like, I don't know. I think I remember you saying like, I don't know how I feel about that. And I was like, what? And you're like, dude, that gave us a huge advantage. I'm like, I'm like, yeah, I know, it's awesome.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And then I thought about it, I'm like, but wait, like we do that like every hunt, really, and it was just the first time that it.
Well, and like
really
you said,
off.
yeah, that's an interesting discussion.
Yeah.
I think the hard thing is like I said, we're getting way off on this, and I'm going down the rabbit hole. But it's almost like the door's been open too far.
Yeah, it's like now where do you stop it?
Where do you stop it? I mean, the equivalent to this, and it's funny, and I like to fish, right? I like to fish in the fact of I'm not obsessed and a passionate fisherman, but I like to go fishing. It's fun. Mm-hmm. And so, but I only usually do it handful of times a year. So I don't know what's going on in like the fishing industry and what's going on with gear and things like you do.
Yeah.
Well, you were talking about that one thing in the fishing side.
Yeah, like the live scope.
Yeah, live scope.
Yeah. Where you can literally see the fish on your craft, like swimming and like making,
Yeah. So you were talking about how guys will go ice fishing. They will, let's say they drill a hole ice fishing. They put their live scope down in there and they turn the live scope wherever they are.
Yep.
And they'll go, okay, there's a school
30 feet that way.
30 feet that way. They step it off, drill a hole, down it goes.
There
boop,
it is.
There they are.
Yeah.
Or muskie fishermen.
Yep.
Going into a bay, going into this little spot where they pull in there, they get, a couple hundred yards away from the shore, put their live scope out, see if there's any muskie close. Nothing here. Let's keep moving on.
Yeah. Whereas normally before you go in there and make a bunch of casts in there, not wasting time, but you didn't know what was in there.
All of a sudden, maybe it's not the fish at 10,000 casts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And that has changed in the fishing side. Now there's a lot of tournaments
are starting to kind of get rid of them a little bit.
Won't let you allow you to do those live casts.
I don't think that they will ever totally get rid of it. I was reading up on some things, and they say it's actually a big help for fish numbers and whatnot, and it's just part of the evolution again.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, it's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was crazy to see how that cell cam came in handy. And I'll tell you what, like I said, we both run tack cam cell cams and love them. Had great luck with them. Love them.
Yeah.
Wish I had 20 more.
Yep.
My wife would be mad because she doesn't like when it comes out of the monthly thing, but I don't care.
I've already been just completely planning out how many cameras I'm going to get in that season.
And dude, I'm telling you, a lot of, and I don't know, maybe I wouldn't think I'm the only guy that's doing this, but I'll tell you what, we've talked about this before. I use my trail cameras a ton in the spring for turkey hunting.
I know, dude. It's going to be so fun.
And it's not like we're going to be off trail cameras from January through when the bucks start growing antlers again. like we'll have trail cameras out here in another,
Pretty soon,
Yeah.
actually.
yeah, probably middle of March.
Yeah.
We'll get, because we go to Harrisburg, we have a couple weeks, then we go to Iowa. In between Iowa and Wisconsin, I'll probably put them back out.
Yeah.
And just be like, okay. And dude, it's made a heck of a difference in how, and it's funny, I actually heard this from a guy at a show a couple years ago that was selling trail cameras, sell trail cams. And I joked with him, I said, man, selling trail cams in the spring, isn't that tough? You're trying to sell, Christmas lights after Christmas, And he's like, man, dude, he goes, the big pitch that I tell people, and he goes, and it makes a lot of sense. He goes, and I've been baling hay doing it. He goes, I use them for turkey hunting.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, dude, it was funny because I was like, are you serious? He's like, yeah. He goes, dude, when a turkey's in the field, and he goes, when they're coming across in the morning.
Yeah.
And he goes, it makes a heck of a difference.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'm telling you, I mean, you've seen it. I do that. There's spots that I won't hunt there until I get turkeys on camera.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just made a heck of a difference. So,
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
I got a strutter over here. Tom's over here coming through.
Yep.
And then I start moving in on them.
Yep.
Makes a heck of a difference.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm excited for it. We're going to have a lot of cameras for
Yeah.
turkey season.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. All right, let's move on. Yeah, so the funny thing is like I said, we had an opportunity at that big doe on like January 7th, and again, that was a Sunday, and we didn't really get a chance to go out after that, so that was the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
But the funny thing is it was January 11th, and the weather was heading our way.
Yeah.
And all of a
bad.
sudden, Mr. Winter said, hey guys, I'm on my way.
Yeah.
So we have tree stands and cameras on public ground. And so we needed to get stuff off. You have to get stuff off within 7 days of the end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were looking ahead at the weather, and it was going to go from like 17 low, or it was like 18 at night, maybe 25 during the day. It was going to go to 3-degree high, negative 12 low.
Yeah.
Wind,
40-mile-an-hour winds.
5 to 8 inches of snow,
Yeah.
blizzard.
Yeah.
So we all of a sudden had to kind of throw it into overdrive and get everything out of there.
Yeah. And thank gosh, I think Saturday I looked at my phone and real feel was like 41 below.
Oh my goodness.
It would have been, A, it would have sucked, and B, it would have just been flat out unsafe.
Yeah. Because we got a little bit of snow between the 7th and when we went out on the 11th.
Yeah.
We got a little bit of snow, but it was manageable, right?
Yeah.
We could handle it. The big thing too is we could get into field driveways.
Yeah.
We already knew the fields were all froze,
Yeah.
so we weren't going to do any damage or get stuck or anything, and we're on plowed fields.
Yeah.
So it was just a skiff of snow over it, probably 5 inches.
Yeah, maybe.
And so it gave us the opportunity on the private spots to really drive out and,
Just get them real quick.
oh yeah, we bailed hay. We'll drive right to the camera, grab it, get out of there. Drive to the next one, drive it, get out of there.
Mm-hmm.
On the public spots, we obviously had to walk,
Yeah.
and it wasn't so bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was. I'm glad we got everything out because it turned crummy.
Yeah.
Oh, we're
really
still in the
bad.
middle. We're still in the middle of it right now.
Yeah.
I mean, geez, it's like 2 or 3 degrees today,
Yeah.
and we've gotten another hit of snow, and then got even more wind, and yeah, it's been a little sketchy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can't complain too much because it is January.
Yeah.
In the Midwest, anywhere, you
Yeah.
know. I mean, heck, I know this is going to be a little dated when this podcast comes out, but look at that Chiefs game the other day.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, yeah.
that was what they said. It was negative 12.
I think it was
The
like
wind chill was like negative 24.
27 most of the game.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, there was people. I saw you and I both saw it on TikTok, and people are showing their beers or their pops, and it was literally
freezing
freezing
as
out-
they pull it out of the
freezing
cooler.
out the top.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yep.
they were grabbing out of the cooler and it's frozen.
Yeah.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've gotten some cold weather. So we luckily went and got all of our tree stands out. Got our cameras out. It's kind of funny because I understand what the DNR does and what they're doing about trying to get stuff out, and I guess, the devil's advocate to what I'm about to say is like, I think a lot of people probably just leave their stuff till the 10th to go, well, maybe I end up getting out.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
And when you have to get it off 7 days after, a lot of times what that ends up being is you're out there in some inclement weather
Yeah.
with cold hands, cold feet, where everything just you're not grabbing quite as good and things like
Yeah.
that. So yeah, we made sure to, had the lifeline,
Yep.
had my harness, had the lineman's belt,
And it's just good to have two people there too.
just be really careful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause it was just like, it's funny because I don't get nervous about that stuff
yeah.
pretty much at all. It's funny, you make me nervous, but I don't get nervous by myself, but when I do get nervous is when it gets cold.
Yeah.
Because my hands just don't work.
Yeah.
And it's just nerve-wracking. Like
steps,
everything just gets sketchy.
Yeah.
But luckily we got everything down just fine. Had no problems. But the funny thing was, and I apologize in advance because I think we're going to kind of go off on this a little bit.
Yeah.
Is
strap in, folks.
Yeah. Is we go to this public spot, and it's a public spot that we've talked about this numerous times on the podcast before. It's a spot that I had hunted years ago. And when you first got here, you're like, man, where should I go? And it's a spot you had looked at and really just kind of completely overlooked.
I really did. I'll admit, I'll be the first to admit it.
Yeah.
First to admit
like you looked at it on the map, you're like, nope. And then I'm like, oh yeah, And so we hunted it this year, which was kind of fun. It was really fun in multiple ways. It was fun to go in there and see kind of how it had changed from when I had hunted it.
Yeah.
And to see how it was in a lot of ways very similar to the way I had hunted it. And it was really fun to see your excitement.
Yeah.
Yeah, it made me feel a little stupid that I had not hunted it because I was like, but it's like, they say they think the grass is greener on the other side. You're going to be walking in the same crap.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I probably should have been hunting it this whole time because it's still really good, but it is what it is. But the funny thing is this is all tall grass prairie, right? It's, pothole country.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
And so I think that's the big reason that you really overlooked it. As a deer hunter, you saw that and you're like, oh, it's just all switchgrass. Like, what am I gonna do with that?
Yeah.
There's some potholes or some marshes in there. Like, I'm not a duck hunter.
Yeah.
Like, what am I gonna do out there?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, especially this season, and I think my brother-in-law and I have had this conversation a few times. I know my buddy Chris Davidson has hunted these for a long time. I don't know why they get overlooked so hard, and I don't know why I overlooked them in the past, but marshes and wetlands, I am telling you.
Dynamite.
They are so dynamite.
Dynamite. Hard to hunt, but dynamite.
Yep. And again, I think the tool that is out there to help you get the major leg up right off the bat on these places are LiDAR maps.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yep. Finding high spots.
Finding high spots within a marsh. Those deer know where the high spots are.
Yep.
We have podcasts that we've done talking about these public spots and looking at the marshes and looking at the LiDARs and looking at the drone video, the boots on the ground, and seeing right where the deer are walking.
Yep.
Based on those high spots.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
The best part about it is it all correlates. It all makes sense. We saw it this year.
It all 1,000% lined up.
Every single thing that we talked about when we were scouting
like the lunar eclipse of deer hunting.
Every single thing that we talked about happened exactly how we expected, due to, I think, solely the LiDAR maps.
Yeah,
just because it's such a powerful tool.
Yeah, yeah. The LiDAR maps make a huge difference.
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, they're pretty cool.
Yeah. So it was.
Yeah, and it's funny because like when my buddy Chris Davidson was hunting them. And when he first mentioned this to me years ago, and I had hunted wetlands too, but just never really talked about that much to anybody. Yeah. Hearing him talk about it, he's like, oh yeah, man, dude. He's like, I'll go out into wetlands and I'll find those high spots and I'll just sit in there. Like he's like sat doing all day sits on like wetland high spots and had deer under 10 yards right there. It's crazy. And you can look at a wetland and see where there's if there's
a lot
something,
of times you can see it with your naked eye.
There's a differentiation in the landscape where, okay, there's all these cattails and then there's brush.
Yeah, exactly.
That's probably a high spot.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and you could see that on the drone footage and everything else. But the point is when you looked at that place, you just kind of were like, oh, well, whatever.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is it's a lot of tall grass prairie and, that kind of like prairie pothole wetland type stuff.
What would you say? Probably 90% of it is that?
Yeah, 90% of it is all just grass.
Yeah.
It's just grass.
Yeah.
I mean, it's grass as far as you can see.
Mm-hmm.
It's just grass. I mean, it's just wetland grass. And then if that's not that, it's these little pothole, marshes.
Yeah, a couple of little ag fields in there too, which is awesome.
Yep.
But yeah, just rolling hills of just tall grass.
Just grass.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing is where I had keyed in on that spot before and where we really keyed in on that spot this time was there was a piece of private up against the public.
Yep.
And there was a tree line there. And on wet years, there's a little bit of a kind of a marsh back in this spot.
Yeah.
But this year it was pretty dry. And there was all these, I think they're like cottonwood trees.
Yeah.
That years ago that were pretty small.
Yeah.
And I
still are pretty young, I would say.
Yeah, they're not, but they're big enough.
Yeah.
Before they weren't big enough.
Yep.
I couldn't, and I told you that when you went in there in March. I said, hey, look at that little thicket, because before those cottonwood trees and whatever they are, like they were too small, but they got to be getting close to be big enough now.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, well, that was what we really keyed in on.
Yeah.
And as the season progressed, the scrape that was there was the scrape of all scrapes. I mean, I haven't,
easily by far the biggest scrape I've ever seen.
yeah, it was pretty big. I
Yeah.
mean, it was, you could have 2 deer standing butt to butt or head to head, and there still would be room on each side.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was big.
Yeah.
It was really crazy. I mean, it was just crazy. And they were using this cottonwood thicket / wet spot, little pothole, that it had all this brush inside of it. They were using that as a huge bedding area.
Massive bedding.
And coming out of that, and there was this like bur oak, white oak, fragment of woods right there
on private.
But there was also burrs and white oaks on the public side as well.
Too, yeah.
And they were basically kind of, it's almost like you could kind of triangulate,
Exactly. And they just
bounce between all
back
three.
and forth.
Yep. They would go to one. The does would be in the thicket. They would be in the oaks.
Yep.
They're getting acorns and everything in there, and then they're coming back out into the thicket, and then they're going and finding water in, the little sloughs where they've got water, and then there's grass, and then there's ag fields out on the edges.
Yep.
There's ag fields in the middle. Whoa. And I just about knocked over the mic. And it's just this constant movement of these deer through there. And it was dynamite.
Yeah.
I mean, it was everything that you wanted.
Yeah.
So about mid-November, when it's like the peak of the rut, and we're at deer like number 38 by then, 39.
Yeah, this is the piece that we had 47 different bucks on. By the way.
Yeah. All of a sudden, Mr. checks his cameras 200 times a day. Here is a brush hog in there.
Goes just sprinting into Cole's, basically knock his door down.
Yeah. I mean, just losing it. There's a brush hog. Well, here, come find out, the DNR goes in there, and they're brush hogging all of this willow brush or oak brush, or not oak brush, but like cottonwoods.
Yeah.
Whatever the stuff was. It wasn't cottonwood trees, because there was cottonwood trees in there.
Yeah.
But there was like willow brush, or I don't know what you call it.
Yeah.
Tall brush.
Yeah.
That was jungle.
Yeah.
There was deer pass through there, but it was jungle.
Bedding heaven.
Yes. Deer bedding heaven.
Yeah.
Give me a break.
Yeah.
It was amazing. And they're just brush hogging it.
Yeah.
And on the camera, I mean, it was a lot. Well, of course. And like, why they would do it in the peak of the rut. It's like, come on, guy. Like, come on. Like, let's use it. Like, let's work together here.
Yeah.
You had to come out there on November 10th. Like, that's the day you decide to do this.
Yeah.
So obviously the cameras just went non-existent cold.
For a little bit, but then they started using the crap out of it again.
So then, so they go in there for a couple of days, and they're brush hogging.
Yeah.
And they basically, what they were doing is where there's the oak trees and the private public line, and there's a little bit of a space that they had already mowed out where you could kind of walk through, and the deer were using that.
Yeah.
And then there was all these cottonwoods and this willow brush. So they start brushing and cutting back this willow brush, cutting it back. Well, along this edge, there was this edge of cottonwood trees.
Yeah.
That had seeds had just found their way.
Yeah.
And there was these cottonwood trees kind of in a nice little line.
Yeah.
Right on the edge of this willow brush.
Yeah. And they waited. So once they took the brush out, we're like, well, it's still decent.
Yeah. We're looking at it going, so they cut this willow brush back and back and back and back. Well, we were using the willow brush as part of the cottonwoods to kind of stay out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
You could sit in those cottonwoods. You can see we have video where we have that cool, that double beamed buck.
Yeah.
He walked right underneath of us.
Yep.
And you can see where he walks right through all that brush.
Yep.
Goes back off. Well, they had cut that back so far that the cottonwoods just stuck out like a sore thumb.
Yeah.
I mean, they were just all there by themselves.
Yeah.
And you're just like, dang.
Yeah.
You're like, come on, guys. Like, and it's like, so it made it really, so then it's like, now you're kind of sticking out. Well, all of a sudden, when they got out of there, it was like 3 or 4 days later, and all of a sudden the deer just were like, woof.
Yeah.
They were back.
Yeah. We had 33, our biggest buck we had all year, daylight. Scrape Johnson was daylight.
So then here we are with 33 during the day.
Yep.
Boom, there he is.
Like 9 in the morning.
So I was like, okay, got to go there.
Yep.
And I was planning on hunting that day. So I went out that afternoon.
Yep.
And we hadn't been out there yet. We're like, well, it's going to be interesting to see what it looks like.
Yep.
Well, they had cut that brush so far back, those cottonwoods just stuck out like a sore thumb. So I'm up there and like, well, he's in here somewhere, and I kind of had a good enough wind, but it wasn't really that good.
Yeah.
And I was using the Ozonics. I think it was a north. Was it a north? East? Yeah, or northeast. Yeah, it was. It was a northeast. It was a northeast wind.
Yeah.
Because I knew that where he had come, it looked like he went to the east, but I was like, or went to the west. I was like, dude, I'm going to try it. Yeah. So I'm HR 500 cooking, you know what I mean? I'm like, okay, here we go. I'm like, it's time to start hunting the deer. Like, let's do this. And it just didn't come out.
Yeah.
But other deer came out.
Yep.
And I'm sitting up there, and they came out of the thicket behind me, out of the willows that were left, and they pegged me. Like, came right out and were just like, bump. Yeah. There was nothing. I mean, I'm just standing up there. I mean, it was silhouetted like all get out.
Yeah.
And it's like, dang, I was like, well, I guess it's better than nothing. The trees are still here.
The trees are still there. It's still, you can at least get a stand in a tree.
Yeah. And it's like you could hunt it, and it was still huntable.
Yeah.
So fast forward to now.
Well, and I want to say this too. I went in right before gun season came in. I just wanted to pull my cameras down. And when I went in there, so it would have been right before December 1st, right after Thanksgiving, I went in there and everything was still the same. There was still trees up pretty much everywhere.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
So pull the cameras down.
And you also pulled the bottom 2 steps of the tree stand.
Yes.
Just because, I didn't have it chained in, and I was like, well, if you pull the bottom 2 steps, you're not going to be able to jump up and get to it.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it won't get ripped down during the gun seasons.
Yep.
We'll go in there either during late muzz or after the 10th.
Yep.
And we'll tear it down.
Yep.
So that's what we did.
Yeah.
So we go in there on the 11th because this weather's coming, and it's like, hey, let's get in there. Let's tear it out. So we come around the corner where the stand is, and the DNR had gone back in there, and they took out the whole cottonwood tree line except for the tree that the tree stand was in.
There's just one
There's
tree.
just one single tree. One tree left.
Well, it's January 11th. We're at the spot where we had 47 different bucks. We had a really good spot where we were hunting. We had that 33 here, daylight, probably pretty close to where we're standing. Yeah. So we come around the corner today and we bumped 76 deer. They are standing right there. See, they're going across. And then a bunch more ran out into this thicket. And to our surprise, we come around the corner and
There's no tree line left.
there's no more tree line.
There's only one tree.
There's
the tree line right over there in that big pile.
there is
There's the hawk waiting for us to fall in the stand so we can come out and peck out our eyeballs.
what do you got to say about this, Cole?
This is where hunting and biology clash. Because somebody thought that it'd be a great idea to cut out a perfectly good tree line
But
for some sort of habitat that probably doesn't mean anything to you and me.
props to the DNR for leaving our stand up.
Yeah, a lot of them down.
But no,
I guarantee you they would be, if we put a camera up, they'll be in here on the 21st.
oh yeah. But in all reality, we knew this was coming. We had a camera right there on a big huge scrape. And when was that? Mid-November probably?
What's that?
When they came in here and started taking all this down.
Yeah.
Mid-November, we had a bunch of trail cam pictures of a guy in here with a skid steer. Peak of the rut.
And just to be a fly on the wall of that skid steer, whatever they had out there, and the guy doing the chainsaw, that, because they couldn't get to the stand. No. Now, maybe they could have. If they had a skidle, they probably could have put it up there.
Up.
And but legally, they probably had to leave it.
Yeah.
And they were probably, like we talked about, but they're counting down the days until after 7 days to go in there,
Yeah.
rip the stand down.
Which is today.
confiscate it.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, today's 7 days.
Oh, that's funny. And then cut down that the last lone cottonwood out there.
Yeah, and just to add salt to the wound a little bit, we come around the corner. We're just about to the stand.
We had a northwest wind, so it was blowing into the private.
And oh my gosh, the amount of deer that came running out of there.
It had to have been 25 deer.
It was like, oh my gosh. There was just a pile of
It's
deer.
just like just doe after doe. Just
I'm like, oh, there's more. Oh, there's 7 more.
oh, there's 11. Oh, there's 10 more. Oh, there's 5 more.
I mean, just
Piling out of there.
I'm like, gosh, this just sucks.
Yeah.
This just sucks.
Yeah. And so, it's interesting because, and this is where that was the backstory
Yeah.
to
The segue into
the
this.
segue into what we're going to talk about now. And again, before we start, we'll just be very clear that we obviously are deer hunters.
Yes.
That is our perspective. We don't have somebody sitting here or there or video chatting with us right now that's giving the perspective of the DNR.
Yeah.
So we're going to fill that in. We're going to fill that in ourselves.
Yeah.
So that's our perspective. But it's just interesting to me because I know that, and I've heard this from other people before, and I'm actually really interested when we go to the Iowa Deer Classic. I always find myself in heated discussions at the Iowa Deer Classic with the Iowa DNR every year. Yeah.
Which is crazy
I got a
because-
guy all sideways with me a couple years ago. He got real upset with me.
Well, it's crazy too because I think the Iowa DNR does a great job.
I do too.
With everything from how their seasons line up,
Yep.
everything. I
Yep.
think that what the Iowa DNR is a testament to the hunting that we have here,
Yes.
minus what we're about to talk about.
Yeah. And again, we're being the backseat driver here.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
again, I'm not a biologist.
I'm not
I'm
either.
I'm not a forester.
Yeah.
Do I know what's best for the ecosystem? No.
Yeah.
But again, do I also know and do I also understand general logic and just like, let's just think things through,
Yeah.
thinking objectively?
Yep.
Yeah, I think so.
Yep.
And for me, this just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And yeah, I feel like we should really get somebody on and have a really,
I know. This could be a whole podcast in itself.
yeah, really could be. But the point of this is, I just don't understand.
Yeah.
Because from my perspective, we're out here in this tall grass prairie, and I understand that there's species of trees and bushes and shrubs, whether it's cottonwoods or willows or whatever it might be, that aren't native
Yeah.
to certain, areas or aren't native. They wouldn't have been there pre-human
Yeah.
interference,
Yeah.
pre-agriculture, you know what I mean, in the state of Iowa. And I get that. But the reality is that's not the world we live in anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And, so it's like and I've heard people talk about that the Iowa DNR is managing Iowa public land to restore it back to what it was
Yeah.
pre-human interference, pre-agricultural demolition of the countryside.
Yeah.
Do you follow me?
Yep.
How we have changed it.
Yes.
But, and so it's like, I understand that that's what they're trying to do. And they probably went out there and they looked at that and said, well, this is a wetland pothole and these willows around this and these cottonwoods wouldn't have been here 200 years ago.
Right.
And so we're going to restore this back to what it was before. So we're going to rip all these out of here.
Yeah.
Because, they look at it and say, we're going to rip all this out of here because there's certain open country birds and little Tweety birds and type things that, need very specific habitat and are very sensitive to the encroachment on that habitat.
Yeah.
And so if we don't rip this out of here, they need all this grass to be able to survive. And
Yeah.
this is really, it's affecting that.
Yeah.
Or snake habitat or whatever. I mean, dude, there's a place over by where I grew up that I hunted when I was a kid. I shot a great buck there with my recurve during late muzz season, December 22nd. I don't know why I always remember that date. It was in a snowstorm. And I shot that buck in this little old farm grove that had all these big cottonwood trees. Okay. And years later, my brother-in-law, he called me and said, hey, and I was near Belmont for something. And he goes, hey, don't drive by whatchamacallit. I said, what? And he goes, oh, you're going to be mad. Just don't. I'm like, what are you talking about? And he said, that piece was private, and it was a private piece of private ground that I had permission for, and the Iowa DNR bought it. They got a hold of it. And he said, they cut it all down. I said, what? I said, what are you talking about? He said, yeah, they cut every single tree down. There's nothing left. I'm like, dude, there was cottonwood trees in there that were huge cottonwood trees.
Yeah.
Now, were they there 200 years ago? Probably not, right? But they were big enough that they were there 100 years ago.
Yeah,
They were 150 years ago. They were big.
Yeah.
They're big trees. I mean, it's crazy how big some of these cottonwoods. You could tell it was an old farm grove. There was old farm buildings. There was old, you could find buckets and tin cans and all sorts of junk that was like, there was an old, there was old foundation from a house.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, dude, they ripped it all out. I'm like, what are you talking about? And he goes, oh yeah, that's the best part. He goes, guess what they ripped it out for? Like, I have no idea. I'm like, snake habitat. That's why they ripped it all out.
Yeah.
For snakes.
Yeah.
We've got a huge stand of trees that, okay, if they are indigenous or they aren't indigenous or whatever, they weren't here 250 years ago. Well, guess what? None of us were here either.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I just don't get it.
Yeah.
It's like, 250 years ago, we had buffalo that were running across the state of Iowa, elk that were running across the state of Iowa, grizzly bears running across the state of Iowa. It's not the way it is anymore. Are we reintroducing them now at some point that I'm not aware of?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, no, we're not, I mean, it's like, look at Clear Lake. Perfect example. If you get on your phone and Google about Clear Lake, when they first found Clear Lake, whoever it was, the explorer that came across Clear Lake, they were walking through all this tall grass and just came to this big open lake.
Yep.
They said that you could see as far as your eye could see down in the water. So they named it Clear Lake. Clear Lake. Clear Lake is the least clear lake in the state of Iowa.
Yeah.
You can't put your hand down in the water and see 5 feet.
Yeah.
Give me a break. But they're not going to.
They're not going to do anything to restore that.
Yeah. Well, why
what
not?
can you do? Well, because I don't.
Dude, you know what I'm saying? It's just, to me, it's like the hypocrisy of like, well, but Clear Lake, there's all the houses, there's a community, there's all this stuff. So then, but they can't restore that. You know what I mean? Like, they're not going to drain the lake and get rid of the zebra mussels that are invasive to Clear Lake, because that would impede on all these other things.
I know.
But then they're gonna, but we're okay with cutting trees down. Like,
Well, yeah, it's funny.
I mean, I don't know, dude. I mean, and maybe I'm comparing way apples to oranges,
not really though,
but
because
it just seems really funny to me.
Because I guarantee you that the reason that they're not doing anything to Clear Lake is because Clear Lake brings in money for the town, for the community, whatever. But it's like, okay, so then where do you draw the line in the sand? Because a good public piece is probably going to be bringing in money too,
Right.
For out of state people who are buying pheasant tags or buying deer tags, for
Right.
resident people who are excited to go hunt this piece,
Yeah.
and put a lot of time to it, buy their deer tags, spend their time out there, respect the property,
Right.
but then they're gonna go and diminish that
I know.
for
Yeah.
snakes and Tweety birds.
Yeah.
It just, maybe we're completely wrong on this,
Probably are.
but it's interesting to me, especially on a place that is 90% of the habitat that they're looking for.
Yeah.
What they're cutting out is like such a small fraction
Yeah.
that probably won't help it as much as they think. I think, because
Yeah.
it's such a small portion of that. It's like,
Yeah.
why not just leave it?
Yeah. And yeah, and that's the thing. I think the thing too that's interesting, is from what I understand and from what the Google searching that I've done and all the things that I've read and I've found, the state of Iowa is trying to bring the habitat back to its former state.
Yeah.
That's their goal.
Yeah.
How was it before human interference?
Yeah.
How was it before agriculture? How was it before we got here? But let's even go through that. The hypocrisy in that in and of itself. So where do we draw the line on that? Back to when it was before, like, settlers came across? Well,
Yeah.
last time I checked, there was Native Americans here
Yeah.
living here before there was, explorers documenting and they have historical records,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You follow me?
Yeah.
Like, they were affecting the landscape at that time.
Yeah,
You know what I'm
exactly.
saying? Like, not only that, but like when you look at that public spot as a great example, you've got public land, but then you have a farmer on the other side of the fence that can rip the field
Yeah.
and do whatever he wants,
Yep.
whenever he wants.
Yep.
And the guy over here can leave those oak trees or whatever cottonwood brush or willow brush
Yep.
on his spot just as it is.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so it's just, that's an interesting spot because there's an oak grove on the public land spot.
Yeah, exactly. Not
And
far.
there's an oak grove on the private ground spot. Now, the research that I found, they're saying, well, oak trees are indigenous, right? You look at like northwest Iowa, over by Lake Okoboji. That is rolling pothole country, prairie potholes.
Very
and then
similar to here.
And it's tall grass,
Yep.
prairie. But then all of a sudden you get near the lake and there's these huge big oak groves. So those oak groves are okay. I guess those are indigenous.
Yeah.
So maybe the oak groves here are safe.
Yeah.
But it's just, I don't know, man. I don't know. I feel like we need to live in the world we live in now.
Yeah.
Do I wish that we had buffalo and elk and grizzly bears and wolves running around? Heck yes, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
But that's not the world we live in,
No, exactly.
and, ripping out this, these willows and these cottonwood trees, like, is that going to serve the purpose that you're really trying to do? So some random freaking dude can walk out there and go, man, I am so glad that we have put this back to the state it was 200 years ago.
Yeah.
I feel so much better about that.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
I just think
I don't know.
The juice is not worth the squeeze for what they're doing.
Yeah.
The work they're
It's like-
doing out there, the money they're spending on it.
Like, I feel like there's bigger fish to fry.
Exactly.
I don't know.
Exactly.
I don't know. It's just because, again, and maybe they're looking and go, well, there's plenty of deer habitat out here. There's other places for you guys to hunt. Yeah, I know there is. There's plenty of places to hunt. But guys, these trees are perfectly fine here.
Yeah.
As a hunter, let's just look at this. There's a huge big scrape here. You guys have cut in a trail. You've got oak trees. You've got farmland. You've got food. You've got water. You've got everything.
Yeah.
This is the perfect spot. And now it's gone.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny too, because it's like that spot, it has multiple cornfields and hay fields and bean fields. It's like, okay, so what are we trying to do here then? Are we, why? I mean, that's not, it's natural, original habitat.
And I get that there's a balance.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
There's a balance, but man, I just feel like if you're managing it to bring it back to its former state and that's the goal, that is, I don't know.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. I think we both feel so, passionate about it just because you've hunted it for a long time.
Yeah.
It's my first year here. You're gracious enough to let me, kind of show me the ropes out there, and it was amazing. And now it's just kind of like I got a sour taste in my mouth because I'm like, sweet, I had one awesome year, and now it's probably never going to be the same. I mean, is there still going to be deer out there? Sure. Is there still going to be great big bucks? Probably. But it's just going to be different because I just feel like where we were hunting and how we were hunting was the best way to do it. And now we're really going to have to think outside the box and really figure
It's
out.
going to be way trickier.
It's going to be super tricky.
Well, it's going to, and in that spot specifically, we're going to get, and it's, man, if there's somebody in this area that's listening to this, that's on the DNR, I really sorry if we're blowing you up. And please don't go cut down the specific tree that I'm going to mention right now. Because what I had to do before is on the other side of where those cottonwoods and that willow thicket was, there's all these oak trees.
Yeah.
And I don't know, when they set the fence or whatever, every oak tree, I've walked the fence.
Dude, it's insane.
I literally, dude, did I not tell you the first time you went out there? I said, I know you're going to want to walk that fence line. I said, every tree's on the wrong side. I said, I've checked every one. And you did. And you're like, you're right.
Well, it's crazy. It's a fence line, the public. Every single tree on the public side is all just completely mangled and all sideways. You look at the other side of the fence, just
perfect.
Telephone pole.
Huge oak trees, just perfect. Perfect.
You could put a stand in 95% of the trees in there.
95%.
It's a beautiful oak grove. It's sweet.
Yep, it's mint.
Yeah.
There's a couple oak trees, just a couple little ones. They're small.
Tiny.
Yeah, and you're literally maybe 10 feet off the ground, maybe.
Yeah.
And I hunted them 5, 6, 7 years ago, and I literally I just had these old rickety-dickety stands back then, and the stands, they were like Menards specials, right? And they had a U piece that you would screw onto the back of the bar, and it was like this. The tree would fit inside the bar. It was really bad. And I sat in that because I was like, because I mean, again, you can hunt off the ground and you really can, but man, and the way that sits, it's like on a little bit of a hill. So 10 feet off the ground, off the tree is like 15 feet off the edge.
Yeah.
But it's just, I mean, maybe that's what we're going to have to do, but it's just going to make it really, really tricky.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
It's going to make it tricky. It's just like I said, when you went out there and you're just looking at this one cottonwood tree, you're like, really, guys?
Yeah.
Like, this is what we're doing?
Yeah.
And so then, it'll be really interesting. I think what we'll probably do is go out there, we'll fly the drone over it instead of having to walk out there and see what they're going to do.
Doing, yeah.
I mean, are they going to cut the rest of that out?
Yeah.
Or are they just cutting out some of it?
Yeah.
Like, and if they only cut out some of it, that seems even dumber.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so now we're only cutting out half of it?
I hope
like
right
that made
now-
the difference? Like, come on, guys.
I hope that they just take everything out that is there right now.
I hope so too. I hope I hope they shred every willow that's there, and literally, as far as the eye can see, is just grass.
Yeah.
Because then at least they did something wholeheartedly and makes some sort of semblance of sense.
And then from a deer hunting standpoint, hopefully the deer just travel from the oak grove on the private and the oak grove on the public, and they just go back and forth that way rather than having that amazing, luscious thicket that they could bed in. And maybe they'll just travel more so east and west rather than north if there's nothing there. But that's probably not going to happen. Yeah. It's probably still going to be, it's just going to be really difficult to hunt probably.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be super hard. Yeah.
Hey, maybe we should just go out there and shoot a giant.
Listen, saving the Tweety birds, man.
Yeah.
Snakes.
It is going to be really fun, though, to start getting some cameras out there, start scouting it a little bit in the summer just to, like, I don't know, I'm bummed about it, but I'm really excited about it to just still see if we can make something work. I mean, who knows? It could end up in us not even thinking about hunting it, but you just never know, I guess.
Yeah. It's going to be really tricky.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really, really interesting. And like I said, my experience is, hunting on the ground can work, but hunting on the ground from my experience, it has to be kind of like an all or nothing thing. Mm-hmm. Meaning, when you see guys video hunts that they're hunting on the ground, when it works, right? But when it doesn't work, you blow up a spot.
Mm-hmm.
Do you follow me?
Yep.
Do you follow me?
Yeah.
Like, it's very, very hard to hunt on the ground and get close to deer. And if you don't get them, to get on the ground again and do it again and again and again and again. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, 100%.
That's why over the course of time, a lot of guys are exclusively hunting out of tree stands or elevated off the ground because you can get away with it.
Yeah.
You're putting less pressure. They don't 100% know exactly where you are.
Yeah.
Do you follow me?
Yep.
And it's like when you're on the ground and you get close to them like that, and if you don't get them shot, man, it just gets harder and harder and harder. That's my experience.
No, yeah,
when I've hunted on the ground, it just feels like it's a process of like diminishing results.
Yeah.
Works really good at first, but then it gets harder and harder to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
And when it works great.
Yeah.
But
more of the story.
And maybe the thing is you just only go in there when it's like prime time. You get the cameras in there,
exactly.
And you just wait until
let them soak and
just wait until you get deer on the feet during the day, and then when you get them on the feet during the day, you go, okay, now I'm moving in.
Yeah, let's get aggressive.
Yeah.
No, I think I'm not totally giving up on the spot yet.
No, and I'm not either. It's really, really, it's just kind of a kick in the pants.
It really is. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And we have the video, of the single tree. It's just so funny. Just it's sitting there by itself.
It's very weird.
And hey, who knows? Of course I go to maybe we have a wet spring. Maybe we have a wet summer. Maybe they can't get any equipment out there. And you're looking at me going, all they need is a chainsaw. I'm like, yeah, you're probably right. Because they pushed all the brush, they pushed all the trees back in there. And they just made a pile. Now, are they going to burn that pile?
Yeah.
Or are they just going to leave it? And then they're going to use that for habitat too. I don't know. It just seems weird.
I'm super curious to see what it's going to look like in the next couple of months. Really curious.
The other thing I thought of, this is way outside the box. I thought about this when we were out there, and I'm like, I don't even think this is a good idea. It's probably not. Not a lot of people do this here, but in Texas, a lot of guys hunt out of tripods a lot. Tripods. Not a tripod's a ton. Just like a tripod. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Has a seat at the top.
Yes.
So I was thinking about that. I'm like, well, if they don't cut all the willow brush out, maybe you go in there and you just absolutely cuss out a tripod, trying to get that thing set up in the willows.
Oh my gosh. It would be so sweet once it's up.
Do you follow me?
Yeah, 100%.
If you literally just like set a tripod up in there somehow in the willows, like in the willows that are left.
If they're there, yeah.
If they're there.
Yep.
And then go, okay, now I'm off the ground. That would be kind of cool. Because those willows are not, they're all just like, they're like low to the ground and then they kind of just go up and then they canopy about the height of the tripod would be.
Yeah. Man, that would be really awesome. But it'd be so hard getting that stuff back there.
Oh my gosh, it'd be awful.
Because it's quite a ways back.
I'm telling you, dude, the more time goes by.
Is it a mile?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's a mile for sure.
Gotta be
Yeah, it's definitely a mile. It's
Yeah.
at least, I thought we did it the one time, it was a mile and a half. Remember? Because you did it that one time. You did it from your truck. And the other public spot, that's at least a mile too. Remember that?
Yeah.
That's at least a mile.
Yeah, I feel like there was something that I did other than just walking back though, that maybe made it.
Anyway,
Anyways, it's a long walk. And
makes me want an electric bike.
And there's a lot of never-ending hills.
Well, you want to talk about the old saying like uphill both ways? That feels uphill both ways.
It is 100% uphill both ways.
It is.
It's
the most bizarre. It's the most bizarre thing.
It's not. I shouldn't say it's terrible. It's not that bad. I mean, you can do it easily, but it's enough to tucker you out.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
well, I think we just ended right there.
yeah,
Went on a little bit of a rant there. A little bit of a riff sesh.
sometimes you need to do that. Feels
Yeah.
good to get it off the chest.
Yep. Yeah. It just, I don't know.
If you guys are interested, we'll keep you posted on this little piece.
Yeah.
We'll keep coming back to this and just
we'll see what they do. See how much they rip out of there.
yeah. And then hopefully come fall, we'll show you some trail cam pics.
Yeah.
33 is going to be a 200 easy. So
I just hope he keeps going up the hill.
yeah,
Because I feel like he's the size of the deer that he might look like he might come back off the other side.
Scrape Johnson will be a 160. 32 will be a 170. 9 will probably be 160-ish. If they all made it.
That's going to be the tricky thing.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing about that spot too. I think it's going to get harder for deer out there because when it comes to the gun seasons, they run into those thickets and they just don't have to do anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, if they run through that tall grass, you can stand tall grass, but guys can walk through tall grass.
Yeah.
We tried to walk through that thicket and it is thick. I mean,
it's not like a brushy thick. It's like a
jungle.
high, I don't know what would you call it, high stem count of like decently sized trees.
Oh, I mean, yeah,
that
it's
are like really close together. You can't push through it. You got
it's like the trees are like all like the size of a pop can or bigger. I
Yeah.
mean, it's like you can't just
walk through it.
no, you just can't. Like you're over, under, over, over,
exactly.
under. It's thick stuff.
Yeah.
But-
So
All right, well, let's end it there. A little depressing at the end, but it is what it is.
sorry guys. We hope that you guys have a great week.
Hey, and it's just like we said earlier. There are going to be times in all this stuff, and again, I want to reiterate this, like you said earlier. The Iowa DNR does do an unbelievable job.
Yes.
I mean, there is a lot of people that have interest in what they do and how they manage the entire state of Iowa.
Yep.
And so, like we said at the beginning, like obviously we are very skewed towards whitetails and turkeys.
Yeah.
And so the Iowa DNR has a hard job to try to make everybody happy.
Yeah, exactly.
We're not even talking about just like the interest groups of like hunting or pheasant hunting or duck hunting or fishing. We're talking about insurance companies, right?
No.
We're talking about people on the highway that are hitting deer.
Yep.
You know, I mean, we're not even talking about and then there is the anti-hunters. There are the tree huggers. They have a voice and they have a seat at the table too.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and so there's a lot of things and there's a lot of people, a lot of mouths to feed.
Yeah,
a lot of people to try to keep happy. And the Iowa DNR does do a great job in managing it.
Yeah.
But this whole situation, it just felt really, it just seems kind of silly.
No, you're exactly right. And I think there's probably so many people that are having this exact same conversation, but talking about hunters and questions that they have about what hunters are doing, what the Iowa DNR is doing for hunters too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's always two sides to the story, but I think this one we're just biased towards it just because it's something that we're so heavily involved in.
Yeah.
So, but
yep. All right. That's it. What number podcast is this?
38.
podcast 38 in the books. Ozonics Killerwinds podcast. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. I'm Cole Tanner.
I'm Nick Simon.
Stay classy.
We'll see you next week.